Hello, in this video I'm going to take a brief look at the Aristotelian conception of soul. Now this is not something you need to know about necessarily for the AQA exam, but it may very well come in handy for a bit of context when it comes to looking at the doctrine of the mean, how that relates to the development of good character through habituation and achieving the overall purpose of eudaimonia, the flourishing life. So Aristotle's conception of soul, basically the soul is divided into two parts, the rational part and the irrational part, and the overall goal is to get a balance between them. But these two parts are then subdivided into four further parts, two on the rational side and two on the irrational side. All right? The rational element of the soul contains the scientific part, concerned with knowledge of facts, how we come to know them and so on, and it also contains the calculative part, which has to do with good judgment and mathematics. So here is a sort of diagrammatic representation of the Aristotelian soul. As I say, you've got the rational on the one side, which is subdivided into the scientific and the calculative, and you've got the irrational on the other side, subdivided into the desiderative part, which is the part concerned with desires, and the vegetative part, which is that concerned with our instincts. All right, and sometimes our instincts may conflict with our desires, as we'll see in a moment. And you could also see this as a basic and very early form of psychology. Okay, so the overall aim here is to obtain balance in the soul, and I'll talk about how that works. Now, as I've said, the irrational part of the soul contains the desiring part and the vegetative part. So the desiring part is what we desire, right? It could be sex, chocolate, alcohol, and so on. And the vegetative part are the instincts that drive us towards wanting to be healthy and live well in that sense. All right? And neither of these is rational. Desires, of course, are to do with the emotion, and instincts, of course, are not to do with having established facts in a sort of cognitive way. All right? So the parts of the soul interact. All right? We work with the facts, and from the facts we calculate the mean. So we through the scientific aspect, we develop facts, and then through the calculative part, we establish how those facts ought to be deployed within the framework of our own lives. Okay? And part of that involves how we understand the irrational part of the soul. So yes, we all have desires, and it's a good thing for the human being to have desires satisfied, all right? But an excess of desire would mean that we actually then fall into irrationality, because we might forget that something in excess is not good for us. We might just want the desire and go for it and not think. Okay, so that would mean that the desiderative part had overruled the calculative part and the scientific part. And as you can see, there's a parallel there between excess and deficiency in relation to the doctrine of the mean, which I talk about in the previous two videos. All right? And so the idea is that the rational and irrational parts of the soul work in harmony. All right? Let's say, for example, that you were too rational, and you, perhaps like Kant, decide that emotions should play no part in your moral decision making. All right, that would be an excess of rationality, right, and a deficiency of irrationality, right? You're not satisfying your emotional desires in any way, and you're trying to override your instincts for the sake of rationality. So again, that would be an excess of rationality and a deficiency of irrationality, and where those desires might make you end up. So every person has a slightly different combination of each facet of the soul. Okay, so we all have different wants and desires, and we have different capacities for judgment and so on. Some people are better at art, some people are better at maths, some people desire sporting glory, other people desire glory in an academic environment or something like that. And of course we can link this with Aristotle's Olympic athlete example that I looked at in the previous video on Aristotle. An Olympic athlete will require a different diet to the novice runner. And of course that involves, again, levels of calculation in each case that are different. So that's the end of this video. As I say, the Aristotelian soul is not something you need to know for the AQA spec, but it may very well come in handy.